friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction video 592. That in that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. It is that time to get into another one of these true crime, horror, dark, deep, and mysterious what the is going on type of videos. And today, it is another Wednesday. So y'all know who we're about to go back to? Mike from that chapter. That chapter Wednesdays, y'all. Hope y'all doing excelente out there today. And I'm glad that you came on back to the channel once again. Fuck with the bean. And the title of the video is Police Make a Horrifying Discovery in Hotel Air Conditioner. Now, I'm just gonna go on and say it, y'all. I think what they found in this air conditioner was a dead body. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna go and put that out there. But it's not making a lot of sense to me because, you know, in hotel room, they got their own individual units. And them damn air conditioners in a hotel room is not big enough to hide a body in. Long story short, story long. Unless it's a child or a baby body. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. We're about to see it. We're about to go. But before we go, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need, please. We are back to Mike from that chapter. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, when a couple of soldiers were on leave, they were out partying and having a great old time, but as the night came to a close, they decided to call for a ride home. But with that call, when the car arrived, one of those soldiers had vanished. The search throughout that city was huge, but when the horrifying discovery was finally made, it seemed impossible. This is one of the three stories I'm going to tell you in this old video, and you know, I'm not really a huge fan of the hyperbole, but truly you are not going to expect where this one goes. You know, this video is almost like a flip of the darkest disappearances I do, because in this one, it's not how they vanished that was horrifying, it's how they were found. But before we get into it, please subscribe to see new stories for the dark every single week now. Let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. Get whatever you might need. And I'm just already more excited now, y'all, because it's 3 stories within this video. You know what I'm saying, man? Let's get it, Mike. Let's give it a go.
It was late on the night of April 16th, 2006 that 2 soldiers were out having a great old time out on the town. This was in Savannah, Georgia, a city which has by all accounts a great nightlife. So if you were looking to party, it would be the place to go. These 2 soldiers were from Fort Benning, now called Fort Moore, which is across the state of Georgia. It was Easter weekend, so they were in the port city of Savannah and they were having a great old time. One of these soldiers' names was Jeremy, and he was there with his pal, and they had been, you know, through it all, through thick and through thin. The other soldier was Specialist Robert Hornbeck. Robert was 23 years of age, from Lapeer, Michigan. After graduating from high school, he went on to study at the University of Michigan before entering the military and serving in Iraq. In fact, both Robert and Jeremy had served together. They'd only returned home from their tour in January 2006, just a couple of months before this. And so in April of 2006, Robert Hornbeck was just about 2 weeks away from being discharged. After that, he was due to return home to Michigan, he was going to marry his sweetheart, and he was going to go back to school. So, you know, but he had a lot to look forward to. He was almost out of the army, And they were just having a great, it was a party weekend for them both. That April weekend, Jeremy and Robert were in Savannah to party. Robert, his uncle, lived in Savannah, and Robert's dad, Eric, was due to join them. So it was that Saturday night. Robert was there with his dad, Eric. They were in a bar, they were sipping on suds, they were playing pool. Then, listen, in walks Jeremy, right? To people cheering their beers. Then Eric's wife comes in, all four of them are partying, they're bar hopping throughout Savannah. The drinks were flowing, the dance moves, they were boogieing. But, come about midnight, Robert's dad Eric and his wife, they're like, alright, listen, time for the bet, right, for us. So we'll catch this later, but of course, Robert and Jeremy, the two young fellas, they were like, yeah, more drinks? Yes, please. So then, after hitting a few more bars throughout the city, it was at 3:15 a.m. that both Robert and Jeremy, as you could probably imagine, they kind of had to, walk like that in case any beer, falls out. Jeremy calls Robert's dad, Eric, to ask, hey, listen, we can't get a taxi or whatever, would you mind coming to, come and get us? Robert was sitting beside him on the sidewalk and was, as you can imagine, we've all been there, or most of us have. Eric, Robert's dad, nice guy. I mean, hey, listen, being woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning to ask if you can pick up some drunk people, most people would have said, yeah, you can walk them. But he was a nice guy. So Eric, he walks out, he's walking towards his car, when his phone gets another call. This time it's from his own son, Robert, and he picked up the phone and is about to say, listen, I'm on my way to come get you, when he hears Robert say, I'm on the stairs, and then Robert hangs up. So Eric, just having a call from Jeremy to come pick him up, and then from Robert, he assumes Robert means, they were waiting for him on the stairs, you'll see us. Eric then drove and he arrived in his car to downtown Savannah about 15 minutes later to pick up the two young bucks. But it was only Jeremy waiting for him. Robert was nowhere to be found. So Eric asks, Jeremy, hey, where's my son? He was just right here with you. He just rang me saying he was on the stairs. Jeremy, pretty goose at this point, has no idea. He must have just stumbled off in a drunken stupor, it's 3:15 a.m. So Eric lets Jeremy into...
I'm not buying it, y'all. I'm just gonna go and call it right now, man. I'm not freaking buying it. I feel like Jeremy had something to do with Robert death. Like, I felt like even when Mike first started telling this story, I was like, one of these young men was gonna end up going missing or dying or getting murdered or whatever, and it's gonna be the cause of the other friend. You know what I'm saying? And come to find out it's Jeremy who done did something to Robert. I don't know what Robert meant when he called his father saying I'm on the stairs. I don't know what that is, but I think that is a very important key to where we going. But let's find out.
To his car, and they sort of begin just cruising around trying to find him. It was the absolute middle of the night, the hour of the wolf. The streets were deserted, and Robert, fairly drunk, so he couldn't have gotten very far. But they went up and down the avenues and streets, and he was nowhere to be seen. It really became worrisome after a while. They kept thinking, Robert will be around the next corner, or he'll be in the next alley, or we'll see him curled up in a ball on the sidewalk somewhere in not the best state. But they didn't. And the next morning, when you think Robert's going to be waking up, sleeping off a hangover where he probably fell asleep on somebody's, stairs, well, he didn't call them then. In fact, Robert had left his car outside his uncle, who lived in Savannah, his uncle's house, and his car was still there. It seemed like he never made it anywhere. This is when they became really worried, and Savannah, it's a port city, had he fallen into the water or something like that? The Hornbeck family, they hit the town, and the search for missing Robert began. The police became involved, posters went up, and they offered a $10,000 reward if anybody had seen him.
Yeah, man. Once that next day come over and he still don't show up, now you can't blame it on his drunkenness. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, oh, he's somewhere out drunk and he'll show up in the morning. No, when he don't show up the next morning, now you got to start to think, is he even still alive? And it's just gonna be so effed up, y'all. It's gonna be so effed up if it's Jeremy who did this ish and he out with the father looking for him, looking for Robert, knowing damn well he the one who is the cause of Robert's disappearance. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's where we going, but I got a strong feeling that's where we going.
The search for missing Robert Hornbeck very quickly became big news in this town. Days and then over a week would pass by as they continued searching for young Robert. It was 12 days after his disappearance that some answers arrived. Only, in my opinion, the answers only led to more questions, and, well, it was completely baffling what happened to Robert Hornbeck. At the DeSoto Hilton Hotel in downtown Savannah, Georgia, guests staying at this hotel, they sort of began to complain about a smell in the lobby. The employees at this hotel, they sent out, their maintenance people and their cleaners to go, would you mind find the source of the smell? So they were looking around, was it dead animal, trash, whatever. They couldn't find it. They couldn't find where this really bad smell was emanating from until they just follow your nose. And it led them to the air conditioner vents. The smell was coming from the air conditioning itself. Now, this hotel had actually been searched before by the police, and also by Jeremy, who had been staying there, and the Hornbeck family. They hadn't found anything. Like, this hotel was downtown Savannah, it was close to where he disappeared, so they had popped in, but no trace of him. No trace of him here. So the maintenance worker, he goes into the back alleys of this very big hotel, through these twisting and winding maintenance corridors to, like, this industrial-sized air conditioning unit. It's really, really big. It's not like the individual units that the rooms might have, like one you would have in your apartment. This is one for the entire building. And it was
Okay, now that answered my question from the very start of this video, y'all, because I'm thinking, like, ain't no way in the hell he got put inside, so to speak, whatever, inside one of those little small individual units that be in the actual individual hotel rooms. Gonna find out he in the big thing, the big shebang of the air conditioning that's going on in this hotel. Oh my God, man, I think Robert did it, y'all. I mean, not Robert, rest in peace to Robert. I think Jeremy the one who freaking did it.
a hike to get there, buried deep in this very old building. So he's walking through this very dark corridor, and he comes into the air conditioning room. So he goes into the room where the unit itself is, and there's 3 panels on it, and on the other side of those panels is, you know, the fans and the blowers and such. He turns off the air conditioning unit and he whips out a flashlight, pushes through one of the panels that would lead into the interior of the unit. And in there he finds the smell to be the strongest. And he's kind of looking around, pitch black in there, so he's lighting his flashlight around. And then he begins to see a figure. A rotting figure. He called the police. An autopsy would confirm it was Robert Hornbeck, inside an air conditioner.
That's so crazy.
He had somehow gotten into the air conditioning unit, the industrial-sized air conditioning unit of a hotel he was not even staying at. He had wandered in, pushed through these steel panels, and gone into the very unit itself. How he died was that he'd gone in there and the fans inside the unit had sliced off his arm and pinned him against a wall. He had died from blood loss. No one could explain how he had gotten in there. It was completely baffling. Even if you were staying at the hotel, there'd be absolutely no reason for you to be in the maintenance section. But yes, more so inside the physical unit itself. Hell no. A reporter, in fact, went to where this was, just to explain how impossible it is to accidentally enter an industrial-sized hotel aircon system. So first of all, the hotel was just across from where Jeremy and himself had been waiting for Eric to come pick him up. So for some reason, Robert wandered away from his buddy Jeremy. Dad was only a couple of minutes away. He wandered into this hotel across the road. Okay, maybe he was quite drunk. Maybe he's looking for like a hotel bar, you know, that might still be open. Or something like that, or he just got confused. But then he would have to go through a maintenance store near the ballroom, which is off the lobby of the hotel. So wandering by, I mean, again, I know this is like 3 a.m. at night, but you'd still wander by quite a number of hotel employees at this stage into a very dark and quiet part of the hotel. The door to the maintenance hall was usually locked, but the police found no signs of forced entry, so maybe it had been left open, or at least that's what they assumed. Then you had to climb 13 very steep steps that are apparently almost a ladder. And remember, Robert was very, very drunk at this time, so he must have had, you know, quite the woozies, but he still managed to get up there.
So long story short story long, what Mike is telling us is there is no way possible that man literally walked all that way and went through all those twists and turns and all the stairs and all that, he all drunk and ended up in that air conditioner. Somebody put him in there. But why did they choose to put him in there? This is a weird one, and it do leave you with a lot of questions. I just hope we start to get some answers.
Then he would have entered a dark hallway with the aircon system in a room on the left. Inside there were 3 panels on the unit. He went through the middle one, which was only 14 inches, 35 centimeters wide, and had big danger signs on it. He pushed through these metal panels into the unit, and then suddenly he would have been hit by an extremely strong gust of wind, ice cold wind, the unfiltered, air conditioning, and the noise would have been incredibly loud. In there's basically a giant fan staring right at you that's pushing air all throughout this huge building. So he kept going through that pitch dark, incredibly windy, incredibly cold, incredibly loud unit until eventually the fan hit him and pinned him to the wall. I hear you barking, big dog. What? The Hornbeck family later sued the hotel, but the judge dismissed the case as the debt didn't result from anything the hotel did or didn't do. You simply couldn't expect, as a business liability, you simply could not expect somebody to find their way into an air conditioning unit. A, to find their way in, B, to go in. And he had been there for 12 days before they found him. People think that maybe he'd been drunk in a state, he'd just somehow wandered into the hotel and had been trying to find his way out of the hotel, when he just kept going deeper and deeper, and then thought, wow, how will I get out of here? I'll go into an air conditioner. Even at your drunkest, that doesn't make sense. I couldn't find any reports that detailed him having some kind of drugs in his system. Maybe he was under the influence of something stronger than alcohol. He had just come home from war. Maybe he had some kind of PTSD or something like that led him to want to do this. I simply don't know. Nobody knows. People are still asking what really happened to Robert Hornbeck. The police had even been around this area but didn't look into the air conditioning because, well, they thought nobody would possibly be in there. This is like Elisa Lam level of weirdness. Finding somebody dead in a part of the hotel they absolutely should not be. It's an extremely creepy, bizarre, unexplainable story. But hey, if you got any ideas, please let me know.
Oh my God, man. Oh my God, I think Mike gone to a commercial too, y'all. Let me see.
You, mi amigos, let me tell you about this old video's sponsor and that.
Yeah, Mike gone to a commercial, so I'm gonna skip past that too while I just talk about the first case. First of all, man, I thought we was gonna get it solved. You know what I'm saying? Or more details or something, because that is just the most weird-ish, like, how? I would never believe that man, I don't care how drunk you is. I don't care how drunk he freaking was. I would never believe that he went through all those obstacles and gadgets and doorways and all that stuff and walked literally into the main part of a freaking air conditioner. Got the cold air literally blowing on him. He see the fan. He see this fan, these blades spinning fast as you know what, and he just walked into it and let his arm get cut off and then just went to the wall and died. No, I don't believe that, man. I feel like somebody put that man there, man. I feel like it's a cover up. That's my theory. That's what I'm gonna go with. It's a cover up in that case. Somebody covering some ish up, y'all. Got to be, man. Got to be. But rest in peace to him. But Jesus, I thought we was gonna get more details. Let's get past Mike commercial. And let's go.
On May 8, 2008, 18-year-old Joshua Maddox told his big sister Kate that he was just going for a little hike around their home in Woodland Park, Colorado. He'd be back, in a couple of hours, or be back by that evening. His sister Kate thought nothing of it. This was something Joshua often did. He'd go off for hikes for hours at a time, but he'd be back eventually. No biggie. He'd always been an active and outdoorsy kind of kid, preferring to be out amongst the trees, exploring, and constantly pushing his own horizons further and further. Only Joshua didn't come back that evening. In fact, Joshua would never come home ever again. As well as being an explorer at heart, Joshua was also a creative kid. He loved to play music and write stories, often combining the two talents to write his own songs. He even created his own comic book called Stickman and Smiley. Everything about his personality screamed for adventure, and he also had a wicked sense of humor. Nobody had a bad word to say about Joshua. He's just one of those guys who could find kind of familiar ground with literally anybody, and you'd be, best buds. However, 2 years earlier, when Joshua was only 16, tragedy had hit the Maddox clan. See, Joshua, he was the youngest kid in his family. He had 2 older sisters, and he had an older brother named Zachary, but sadly Zachary took his own life when he was only 18 years of age. Joshua had always looked up to his older brother Zach, and so Zach's death hit Joshua the hardest. I mean, it hit the entire Maddox family extremely hard. His parents, Mike and Roberta, they would eventually divorce, but it was something that Joshua himself really was grieving for, and even 2 years later, when he was 18 himself, he was still grieving his older brother's passing. So at first, when Joshua went out that day for a walk, his family weren't kind of overly concerned. He'd be back soon. Almost everyone Joshua spent a significant amount of time with would tell you he couldn't wait to escape his small town and get out into the world. He was a free spirit, and his sister Kate recounted the many times that her little brother had talked about wanting to run away and begin a whole new life. He would often tell his family, I'll go away, for a while, but he'd always be back eventually. So when he left, I mean, that's kind of what they were thinking is, has he ran away? And they wouldn't blame him if he did. He was just that kind of guy. So while his sisters were convinced he had just moved away, and he's probably doing just fine, his dad, Mike, wasn't so convinced. In fact, his parents started to become more worried and more worried. As you can imagine, parents will always worry. But they began asking around his friends, you heard anything from him? Seen him? Tell you what he was doing? Nada. In fact, 5 days would pass and they still hadn't heard any word. Nobody had heard any word from Joshua, and that's when they reported the 18-year-old missing. Though the police did take this seriously, they also were sort of on the idea that he had absconded by himself, talking to his sisters and his friends and his family. It's like, yeah, that seems like something he would do. They took it seriously, but not as serious as if he was, quite a bit younger.
And the reason why I would take it serious, and I don't blame his parents for taking it serious as they did, is because, okay, maybe it's in his nature and he'll talked about running away and all that. Not even running away, moving away. Let's just say moving away. But it's the thing about that. He haven't contacted nobody to say, at least I'm alive. Hey, mama. Hey, daddy, I'm alive. It ain't like he hated his parents or something. That ain't like he was just moving or running away, whatever you want to say, because he hated his family and he wanted to get away from them. It wasn't that type of energy. It was just, I don't like my environment. I want to move into the real world. I want to explore and see bigger and better things in my life. You know what I'm saying? So he still would have been in contact with his family or friend, somebody. That's why something is wrong with this case.
But officers were notified to be on the lookout for Joshua, a 6-foot, 18-year-old, slim, roughly 150 pounds, man with shoulder-length, dirty blonde hair. They also made sure to note he could be distressed over the loss of his brother, as well as a key distinguishing feature of Joshua's. He'd lost the tip of his index finger on his right hand, the result of a childhood cycling mishap. His description was put out and spread around the various agencies who would dot this part of Colorado. But the years began to pass by with no signs of Joshua. His dad, Mike, never stopped looking. He began to visit homeless shelters further and further afield from their hometown of Woodland Park to see if anybody had seen or heard from him. His sisters, Kate and Ruth, they still were like, he'll turn up one day. He'll just arrive back as if nothing had happened. In fact, they were just hoping that one day they'd go to a bar and see a band playing at the bar, and he would be the guy there playing away, singing into a microphone, and he was just doing his own thing. But that all came to an end in 2015. That summer, the Maddox family finally got some answers about what happened to missing Joshua, but these are the kind of answers that just give you some more goddamn questions. Ones we still have today. On August 7th, 2015, a construction crew was working down at the old Thunderhead Ranch, roughly a quarter mile down the road from the Maddox's home. The main house on that site had been restored in 2013, but now on that site also was an old cabin, kind of at the rear of the ranch, and so they're like, listen, that's got to go. The cabin had been used as a rental property up until around 2005, but it had been abandoned ever since. The building was in rough shape and showed the wear and tear, complete with rats and rot. In spite of the demo crews already here, like down there, expectations about what kind of shithole this place would be, even their expectations, well, they weren't expecting the smell. The smell coming from the cabin. It was that kind of unmistakable smell. And so the owner of the property, of this ranch, a fellow named Chuck Murphy, he decided to investigate. It was more of a smell than just dead rats or something like, or chipmunks or something. This was like something bigger. And looking further into this old cabin, he found wedged inside the chimney the partially mummified corpse of 18-year-old Joshua Maddox. The body was upside down and in the fetal position, with a hand over the face. The knees were right above the head, but the skeletonized legs were separated from the rest of the body. The body was dental records that would eventually confirm it to be certainly Joshua Maddox in a chimney just a couple of blocks from home. The entire time his family had been looking for him. I mean, you could practically see this cabin from the Maddox house.
I had a heart.
Oh my God, man. And I don't know y'all, but I'm kind of I am getting deja vu because I remember a story like this from Mr. Ballin. And if y'all know in the comment section, somebody let me know, is this the exact story? But we have heard about stories from Mr. Ballin about people going in chimneys, man, and freaking getting stuck and dying and then being found days, months, years later. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if Mr. Ballin covered this one specifically, but it makes sense. It makes freaking sense because how Mike was portraying him to be, like he was just one of those people that go off and wanted to do his own thing. I think he thought that he can get up in that chimney and go chill up in this. He had moved away or ran away. Okay, I guess we could say ran away now. Tomato. You know what I'm saying, man? And he went up in this house, tried to get in this house, thinking that the chimney would allow him to get in the house because the doors are locked. But come to find out, when you get in the chimney, you get stuck, and long story short story long, you lose your life, man. That is crazy. I wasn't expecting that, y'all. I wasn't expecting him to get found in no freaking chimney, but it give me Mr. Ballin vibes. Let's go.
Hard story to tell, but it ends with a Southern Colorado family finally getting closure. The remains of a teenager missing for the last 7 years have been found.
Joshua Maddox was 18 when he vanished in May of 2008. His remains were found in a cabin chimney that was torn down last month. The cabin was empty, and his family thinks he was looking for a place to hang out.
It's not what we wanted, obviously. We wanted him to come home, but at least now we can stop looking.
For 7 years, Joshua Maddox's family was left wondering.
All these mixed feelings, because we did hold out a lot of hope.
His sister Ruth says Josh left one day and never said why.
The cabin at Thunderhead Ranch had been in the hands of the Murphy family for over 60 years, since 1950. Chuck's brother had lived there for almost 30 years before leaving it to fall into ruin in 2005. Since then, Chuck would drop in occasionally just to check the place was secure. From time to time, there would be the odd break-in or vandal, but nothing really serious. He'd noticed the smell a long time ago, but given the mice and chipmunks running around freely, he didn't really, think too much of it. So why would he be in the cabin? More specifically, why would he be inside, the chimney? Well, Joshua's cause of death would eventually be ruled to be an accident. That Joshua had, for some reason, decided to get into the chimney and climb down Santa Claus style. Down the chimney, but there had been a wood stove burner at the bottom, so he hadn't been able to get out once he reached the bottom of the chimney and had simply been stuck there. Maybe he had tried to move around to get back up, and that's why he was in the fetal position, but he hadn't, and slowly he died in there. It had not been it was a horrible way to go. When he realized he wouldn't have been able to get down through the chimney due to the wood burner there, well, there was no way back up, and it was either hypothermia or dehydration that ended his life. There was the coroner would say there was no signs of violence on his body like that. Either way, it probably would have been a couple of days before he passed away. But booty, when Chuck Murphy, the owner of the cabin, he heard about the coroner's deductions, he was a bit, are you sure? He had been the one to find the body of Joshua, and ever since he'd been like, when's the sheriff or whatever gonna ring me and talk about a criminal investigation? Because there's something smells, worse than what other people were smelling. Something smells awful here. Chuck could not understand when it was ruled as an accident, no investigation necessary. To him, not only was the scene suspicious as all heck, Chuck also had other information that the police just seemed to kind of discount about the state the cabin was in. Well, for a start, Chuck could think of no reason why he would be in the chimney. Chuck was familiar with people, like this was an old kind of abandoned, spooky cabin in the woods. And Chuck was familiar seeing people break through windows and break through doors to get in and vandalize the place. So if Joshua had wanted to get into the cabin, he could have. Through much, easier ways than trying to climb through a chimney. Joshua was skinny enough, but like barely that skinny, and if he wanted to get in so badly, there's many other ways to get in. Secondly, there was the little detail of the chimney being blocked at both ends. So how would Josh have even gotten into the chimney in the first place? According to Chuck, the top of the chimney was blocked. Now, in some interviews, he says it was just like chicken wire. Other times, he says it's a full-on like rebar, like steel bars have been placed there. But either way, he would say it was impossible for somebody to get into the chimney via the top. So how did he get in there in the first place? And Chuck...
Okay, I gotta say, man, this is not a Mr. Ballin' story, y'all. This is not a Mr. Ballin', man. This one, he'll go deeper. And now it got me questioning, did he get in the chimney himself, or did somebody put him in there? Because the first thing that stood out to me was when Mike said that he literally got through the chimney. Like those Mr. Ballin' stories, these people was getting stuck. You know what I'm saying? It was like the chimney was wide open at the top of it, but when they was going down, it got narrower and narrower. Then they end up getting stuck, can't move no more. They start breathing every breath they take. Long story short, story long. They chest can't go out as far as it could the second before that. Y'all know what I'm talking about, man. But with this case, he made it down to the bottom, but for some kind of way, what it is, a wood bearing, a wood desk, a wood table, something was at the bottom that prevented him from getting down there. And now you got the owner of the house saying that it was something on the top of it. There's no way this little kid could even got down in it. Then you just look at the fact that it was 7 years that before he was discovered, and this owner, like, dude, he just chalked it up to being chipmunks and dead squirrels and rats. I don't know, man. We going down a rabbit hole, y'all. At this point, long story short story long, I don't know what to believe no more. I take back everything I said earlier. I don't know what to believe.
Insists that it had been blocked. The demo crew had been sent in there initially to get all the metal scrap that they could out of the place first. Several of Chuck's contractors agreed there had been a heavy metal bar on top of the chimney, so he couldn't have gotten down that way. And obviously I know what you're thinking, Josh had been missing for a long time, but no, Chuck would say it had been there when he went missing. It had been there long enough. For what it's worth, Chuck Murphy always says there's something more here. This does not make sense how he got in there. Now, of course, though, the police investigators say no, it's an accident. If there had been a bar there, like it had been removed by the time his body had been found due to the demo crew. But they say, even if he could have moved it. Joshua could have just simply moved the bar and gotten in that way. Though if it's like a kind of put in bar, maybe. Okay, so that's kind of one issue. Another issue then is, the clothing that Joshua was wearing when he climbed down the chimney. If he climbed down the chimney of his own accord. Joshua was found wearing a t-shirt. Which is fine. He was completely naked though. Other than the t-shirt, he was absolutely butt naked. The rest of his clothes was found inside the cabin. Now, some of the contractors who had gone in there and been kind of the first people to discover him, or at least sense the smell, they kind of differ in their accounts. Some people say the clothes was just thrown on the floor. Other people say it was neatly folded. However, unfortunately, it wasn't a crime scene at the time, so the clothes had just been thrown out. Either way, how would the clothes have gotten there if Joshua had been in the chimney? Now, you could also say, well, Joshua had been in the chimney, he'd gotten stuck, he'd taken off his clothes, and then thrown them down the chimney, but the bottom of the chimney was blocked with a wood burner stove, so they couldn't have gotten inside the cabin. There was something blocking the entrance to the chimney. A lot of the questions about what happened to Joshua only make sense if there had been a second person there.
I agree.
Other than the clothes, the coroner's report made it explicit there was no signs of Joshua being in a fight, no defensive injuries. In fact, no injuries at all. Did someone have a weapon, a gun, enough to frighten Joshua into following their instructions without a fight? Was Joshua scared of this person enough to get into the chimney? Had Joshua been naked because he had met somebody in the cabin? Maybe there had been something sexual going on there, and then this person forced Joshua to climb into a chimney, therefore essentially murdering them. Had Joshua been in the chimney and case of paradoxical undressing, when you get hypothermia and you feel like you're burning hot, so he began to take all his clothes off. He was still wearing his t-shirt. Maybe there was more to the mysterious death of Joshua Maddox. In a post on a good old Reddit, written in 2015, There was a person who claimed to have gone to school with Joshua, and they wrote that shortly before Joshua disappeared, mysteriously disappeared, well, he just made a friend named Andy. This is believed to be Andrew Richard Newman. This guy is sort of bad news, and it's just interesting that Joshua made friends with a person who would be bad news, and then he just vanished. Andy had allegedly been telling people at school that himself and Joshua were planning a trip to New Mexico together. Soon after Joshua went missing, Andy had told people at school that he had, quote, put Josh in a hole. The thing that throws weight behind these claims is that Andrew did in fact go, and he kind of sort of killed somebody there. Well, allegedly, killed somebody there. So, done it once, maybe he did it before. He stabbed and killed a disabled man and went on the run, finally being caught in Texas months later. He freely admitted to the stabbing, plus an unsolved robbery in Washington. He also claimed to have murdered a woman in Taos, New Mexico, but police already had a suspect in that murder and chose to charge him for the disabled murder instead. Andy Newman had a long rap sheet, and rumors about him had been rife while living in Woodland Park, Colorado, and he certainly seemed to be capable. As of today, however, Andy Newman is a free man. Allegedly, he stabbed this disabled person in New Mexico, and he admitted to it. But the only witness to him doing the stabbing, he died. He died separately in a bar fight, so there was never really enough to convict him of doing it. Many of Joshua's friends, though, and people who kind of in the know about this case have lobbied for the police to reopen it and reinvestigate Newman's possible involvement. So was he. Perhaps others involved in forcing Joshua at gunpoint. Had Joshua been, under the influence of drugs, forced under the influence of drugs, and then forced into the chimney? A lot of unanswered questions in the horrifying case of Joshua Maddox being found in a chimney. A lot of these horrifying discoveries, they kind of start out kind of innocently. Okay, well, innocently is probably the wrong word, but unassumingly, and then they're found in the most horrifying of circumstances. Like, okay, here's one, I said I wanted to do three, but here's one quick story as well about another horrifying discovery. This was the disappearance of Larry Mario Mercado. He was a young man who...
Hold on, before we get into that one, man, maybe just talk about the one before that, man. Dude, I just feel like any type of theory, this one of those cases where any type of theory you come up with is almost plausible. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't say you lying. You know what I'm saying? I can't say, no, man, he ain't go up into that chimney by himself and get locked, stuck up in there. It's possible he could have, but it's also possible that somebody could have put him in there. And the possible person that could have put him in there was Andy. That dude, like when Mike brought him into the equation, it's like, oh my God, now here go another thing that I could believe. So what I'm gonna tell y'all that I believe, my brothers and sisters, is that anything is possible in this case. And I feel like it's sad but true that only God, Joshua, and his potential murderer, if he really did get murdered, you know what I'm saying, the only ones that will ever really know. I feel like this is one of those unsolved mysteries that we'll never get the actual truth to. And anything is possible. Now let's check this out real quick.
He lived in Council Bluffs, Iowa. He was only 25 years of age. He was originally from Honduras and had been working at the No Frills supermarket in Council Bluffs. He had been working there for 5 years and he loved it. Larry was believed to have his own intellectual disabilities, but he loved working at this supermarket. It was his safe space, if you know what I mean. He loved his co-workers. He loved the customers. Just really liked the supermarket. So, when Larry went missing, the supermarket where he worked was where they went to first. See, Larry had been experiencing a severe bout of paranoia when one day he ran out the door without a coat or shoes after he got into a fight with his parents after finishing his work shift Thanksgiving 2009. He went out into that ice-cold Iona winter, barely wearing anything, on a pitch-dark night, November 28, 2009. See, he had just been prescribed some new medication, and it wasn't helping, it sounds like. So his family, they went looking for him, immediately knowing, well, not really knowing what he was going through. But Larry just vanished. They could not find him anywhere. They searched the entirety of Council Bluffs. Nothing. They went to the No Frills supermarket where he worked, where it's believed it was his safe space. They couldn't find him there. They asked them, his co-workers and the employees there, hadn't seen him. The search would go on for days and then weeks and finally years, with Larry just vanishing into a winter's night. Council Bluffs coming up actually seems to come up quite often. Because a lot of stories, Robert Penrose was from Council Bluffs, Iowa, so a lot of weird shit happens there, and this story adds to that ever-expanding list. See, Larry...
It really do, man, because just the thought that he ran out in the middle of the winter night, you know what I'm saying, with nothing but a no shirt on, just his boxer shorts or whatever, you know what I'm saying, no shoes, and just disappeared. It's so freaking weird, man. Like, what the freak happened to him? Where is he gonna be found at? Mike, this has been a crazy video of people being found in the most craziest places, dude. I'm just gonna go and put it out there. You right, when these are some strange freaking cases.
He hadn't taken his car. He wasn't even wearing his socks, and his family knew he was not in his right state of mind due to his mental illness and the medication. So his family, they kept coming back to the No Frills supermarket. They kept thinking, he will appear here. We just feel it. He's gonna come. If he's gonna go anywhere, if he's distraught, he will come here. They kept on returning. Haven't seen him. They'd return again the next day. No, he's not here. And time would pass. A lot of time. 7 years after Larry vanished, now we're talking 2016, the No Frills supermarket in Council Bluffs, it actually shut its doors for the final time. It was shut down. Even then, his family would still regularly go out of their way to drive past this now closed down supermarket just in case he would be standing outside waiting for them, waiting for his shift to begin.
Time out, y'all. I'm having a Mr. Ballin moment right now where I gotta put out a prediction because Mike keep talking about this supermarket, man. And keep in mind, he worked there, my brothers and sisters, or used to work there. You know what I'm saying? What if, because he talking about how it getting shut down now. What if while they shutting this supermarket down, they find that man body up in there? You know what I'm saying? I don't know where, but I'm just saying, man, that would be crazy. I think that's where we going, y'all. Because Mike got me thinking outside the box like we watching Mr. Ballin now. You know how Mr. Ballin, you're thinking outside the box of the most craziness, and this most definitely fit that bill. That'll be crazy, y'all. I think that's where we going. Let's see.
Every time, though, they rubbernecked and they were disappointed. But then in 2019, the building was finally due to be emptied. They were going to renovate it for something else. Builders came back in and they were removing everything from this supermarket, including the giant freezers that were at the very back of the building. Now, these were the huge freezers they would use for stock. They weren't in like the customer area of the supermarket. These were in like, you know, the back rooms, the storage areas, the stock rooms of the supermarket. And as they were removing one, just like in the other stories, didn't they just get a smell? Behind this one freezer, in an 18-inch gap between the freezer and the wall, they found a mummified body. It was Larry. He had been there for almost 10 years. That explained why customers had been for a long time complaining about a bad smell in the supermarket. Larry had, for some reason, come into his safe space. He'd come in there when he wasn't due to work, but as I said, his safe space, he just wanted to come in there, be there. And he had, for some reason, climbed behind this freezer. He'd fallen in there. He'd gotten stuck down there. And the freezers were so loud that nobody could hear his screams. The freezer being so loud, he couldn't be heard. And the freezer being so cold, it kept him mummified. And his parents had been right the entire time. He had been there.
I was informed that employees would randomly go up at different times and be up on the unit. And we believe that he may have accidentally fell behind the unit. The mother, she kind of had an idea that he had never left the No Frills. I don't know how she came up with that idea, but you know, they were pretty upset.
How he ended up in there, no one knows, and how the store didn't notice him or search there or anything remains kind of a mystery. The store owners and the employees at the store were questioned numerous times, but allegedly the authorities have been met with a wall of silence. And again, kind of like Joshua Maddox and, Robert Hornbeck, another story of a horrific way to go, and the horrifying discovery at the back of the freezer, in the air conditioner, in the chimney. And finally, this one last story I have for you today isn't about the horrifying discovery of like where exactly it was made. Well, actually it is. I take that back. It's not really though in what he was found. It was how far away he was found, which also, like all these other stories, does not make sense. See, the story of David...
Before we get into that one, let me speak about him being found in the supermarket, y'all. I called it, man. I'm like, hold on, man. What if? And I know a lot of y'all was thinking that too, man. I know a lot of y'all was out there thinking the same thing, y'all. What the freak? For over 10 years, his body was in that supermarket. Think about the amount of people that went in there day in and day out not knowing that there's a freaking dead body in here while they shopping for their milk and their cereal and their eggs, you know what I'm saying, and they bread. Like, bro, what the freak, man? Rest in peace to him. I don't understand how or why he was in there and how I understand how he got trapped, but I don't understand why he got trapped. Like, why did he get behind those freezers like that? Freaking crazy, man. And I'm pretty sure this last one is just gonna be just as crazy as the first three, y'all. Let's check it out.
Glenn Lewis only begins with his baffling disappearance.
Let's check it out.
David Glenn Lewis was a Texan, and he had attended Texas Tech and gotten himself one of those degrees in political science. Then didn't he go get some more of those degrees and began practicing as an attorney? You'd think with all these degrees he'd be done practicing, getting ready to actually work. But here, listen. I don't know. It was in 1993 that David was finally working in that jewel of northern Texas, the city they call Amarillo. David, he had himself a wife named Karen. They had been married for about 12 years come 1993. He had a young daughter named Lauren, who was the light of their lives. David was a Boy Scout leader, a Sunday school teacher. He was one of those guys who was, really involved in the community, volunteering, charity. Folks, you know the drill. The worst curses he would say would be heck and gosh dang it. And he wouldn't even call them curses. He would say cuss words. And you know what all that means. He's got something to hide. Let's find out what it is. Well, first of all, let's find him, because he mysteriously vanished Super Bowl weekend of 1993. It was on January 28th, though, a couple of days before the Super Bowl, that the story begins. So it was Thursday, January 28th, 1993. That day, 39-year-old David Glenn Lewis, he was in work in his private practice, and he kind of, my tummy. He has a tummy bug. He decides to leave work early. Later on that day, that Thursday evening though, he goes to teach a class at a local community college. The very next day is a Friday. His wife Karen and his daughter Lauren are heading into Dallas. They're going to do some shopping, visit some family. They'll be back in a couple of days. All good. However, when his wife and daughter return home late on Super Bowl Sunday, they arrive to their house just outside of Amarillo, and the house is empty. It's empty of David, but it's not empty of weird signs, if that makes sense. The TV is on. The Super Bowl is over or almost over, but the VCR is recording it. Now, weirdly enough, the VCR was one of those ones you couldn't just automatically set it to record. You had to manually press record. So therefore, he must have been here just a couple of hours previous. It was very strange though. It was the Cowboys-Bills Super Bowl. He was a diehard Dallas Cowboys, America's team fan. So they were like, wait, this is weird, it's not here. There were sandwiches in the fridge, as if he had been, getting ready to settle himself in for the big game. They thought maybe he's gone to a neighbor's or friends to watch it there, but he hadn't. He was missing. The very next Monday morning, he was reported missing to the Amarillo police. And then, David's activities while his wife and daughter were away came to light. What he had been doing over the weekend and the previous couple of days made this case a hell of a lot stranger, folks. Stranger danger. So he left work early on Thursday because he said he was feeling unwell. He taught his college class that evening. The next day, the Friday, his wife and his daughter, they leave town. That same Friday, however, David was spotted at the Amarillo airport. They have a small local airport there. A fellow churchgoer said they believed they'd seen him at the airport, but he looked anxious, hurried, like he was in a rush through the airport, meeting somebody there, going somewhere. We don't know. But he was at the airport. Then later on that same Friday, David's car was seen parked outside the courthouse. Then it reappeared outside David's home. Then the next day it was outside the courthouse again. So it was like David had gone to the airport, was going to the courthouse. It seemed like... let's keep going.
I don't know what it is, but David got some mischievous going on. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe mischievous is the wrong word to use, but it's something going on, and it seemed like he may have staged his whole Super Bowl chilling at the house watching the game thing, as far as like his food and how everything was left. I think he may have staged it to look like somebody kidnapped him or something. But I believe I don't know what he got going, but I think he planned it out. Long story short, short long. I could be wrong.
Super Bowl Sunday morning, the car was once again outside the courthouse, and a man saw David photographing his own vehicle. Then later on that Super Bowl Sunday, his wife and daughter come home, and he's gone. But it seemed like he had just left. His car was later found outside the courthouse, once again, the keys hidden under the floor mat, and his ID, credit cards, all of that, inside the car. Very strange. And then later on, a taxi driver would come forward and say he believed he had driven a man who looked a lot like David to the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. This was on the Monday, February 1st, after the Super Bowl. He said this guy once again seemed nervous, seemed anxious, and he paid for the cab with a wad of $100 bills. Cash only, this fella. Although he'd left his credit card back at the car. But, yeah, weird. And that was it. So David seemed anxious and nervous about something. Was going to the airport, to the courthouse, to home, to the courthouse, to home, to the big airport in Dallas. As if he was trying to meet somebody, trying to meet people, or on the run from people. And David, of course, local attorney, I'm sure his clients were only too chuffed that he had gone missing, and now so their cases were probably in the dust. He was also the assistant county attorney, so he would have dealt with a lot of cases, including criminal cases, in the area, and Karen had reported to police that he had received death threats before due to his involvement. Maybe he'd been on the run, somebody he had put away or somebody he had defended who was not happy with how David worked had gone after him. David was also a defendant in a suit brought against him and a couple of other attorneys around the time of his disappearance. Maybe that had worried him, but it wasn't believed that was like a serious one. It wasn't like a criminal case or anything like that. On January 30th, which is the final day he was definitively seen, the day before Super Bowl Sunday, somebody had deposited $5,000 into his bank account and also purchased a plane ticket in his name from Amarillo to Dallas. If that ticket was used, we don't know. Essentially, if he had actually flown from Amarillo to Dallas. And then later on, another ticket was bought in his name from LA to Dallas. Once again, we don't know if that ticket was used. We don't even know if he bought them. Now, friends and family did not believe that David had disappeared of his own volition. I mean, there are reports of people who've seen him and how he was acting seems very erratic and very strange, as if he was panicked, worried about something. People believe either he ran away because someone or something was after him, or he had been kidnapped due to some case maybe he had been involved in. However, the police, of course, they don't believe that. They believe he disappeared of his own volition. They put that down to two things. One was that he had bought a plane ticket. So kind of there you go. He had been planning on leaving and he had bought a plane ticket and he had left. Also, his wedding ring and his watch were found at home. Things he would have left behind, if he knew he was going to go away. But David...
I gotta say on this one, and it may sound weird, y'all. I don't know why I feel this way, but it's just how I feel on this one. I don't feel like this man got kidnapped. I feel like he actually ran away for whatever reason, man. I feel like he actually went away on his own volition. Is that the right word I'm supposed to use? Whatever word I'm supposed to use, y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. I feel like this man just went off on his own because of whatever reason. But I don't feel like he was forced to do it. He decided to do this. Or maybe he was forced, but he was forced in a way where he felt like he had to do it because if he didn't do it, he would die or his family would die or something. I don't know. Let's go.
Glenn Lewis's disappearance is only one mystery. We have two.
Whoa.
It was in 2003 that a Washington State Patrol detective named Pat Ditter was working on identifying some John Does from the Yakima area. Genuinely good work, helping to give names to those who have none, closing cases, giving families peace. And he would to the Lewis family. Though in doing so opened just kind of a whole other kind of worms, let me tell you. See, he was trying to identify a John Doe who had died in the Yakima area all the way back in 1993, the same year David went missing. And as he was going through, he was investigating old newspaper records, trying to just see if he can match who this John Doe is. He eventually came across the story of missing David Glenn Lewis. He looked at the picture of David Glenn Lewis, looked at the photo they had of the John Doe, and he said, that's him. That's gotta be him. Same guy. He eventually reached out to the Amarillo Police Department, and yeah, DNA tests were done. It was David Glenn Lewis. He had been found, over a decade after he went missing. Found on the opposite side of the country 1,600 miles away from where he disappeared. And how he was found dead in Yakima made no sense. What they knew was that at 10:30 p.m. on February 1st, 1993, near the town of Moxie, close to Yakima, passing drivers saw a strange man walking along the side of the road. He seemed out of it, disoriented, and so one passing motorist drove past them, but then turned around to see if he needed some help. A dark winter's night, this guy walking along the side of the road, stumbling, something bad could easily happen to him. And something bad did easily happen to him. When this driver drove, turned around and got back to him, by the time they did, he was a body in the middle of the road. He had been hit. It had been a hit and run. He was dead.
Oh!
They called the police. They arrived and pronounced him dead there and then. He was wearing military-style clothing, like fatigues or something, and heavy boots. He wasn't wearing glasses, which David needed to see, but he did have some on him. Neither drugs nor alcohol were found in his system, and the car that hit him, it was never found either. But of course this body was found with no identification on him, so he would remain a John Doe for a decade until he would finally be identified by Detective Ditter. How the hell did David Glenn Lewis end up here? He died a day after he had been in Amarillo, maybe watching the Super Bowl, maybe not. And David Glenn Lewis had no known family or connections in the Yakima area. So maybe he disappeared on the Sunday. He was found dead on the Monday night. 1,600 miles in between, that's a 25 hour drive, maybe even more back in the early 90s. So he didn't drive there from Amarillo to Yakima in that time frame. Had he flown there, had he used that ticket from Amarillo to Dallas and then flown from Dallas to Washington State, maybe. Then maybe using that other plane ticket, the one from LA back to Dallas, but he didn't make that plane ticket. He was found. Okay, I gotta show you the maps because this makes no sense. Where he was found, Moxie, is truly in the middle of nowhere. Nowhere near Seattle Airport or near Spokane Airport, which he probably would have needed to fly into to be found where he was at the time he was. It's so far away, and he was found, within a day of him disappearing. And then even how he disappeared made no sense. The VCR in his home must have been manually activated to record the Super Bowl. When his wife and daughter returned home that night, they said the VCR was still recording. So therefore it couldn't have been on for that long, right? Because the tape would have ran out if it had been recording all day. The Super Bowl started at 5:30 p.m. So maybe he must have been there to press record at 5:30 p.m. And then he pressed record, he immediately leaves, gets on a plane from Amarillo to Dallas, from Dallas to Seattle, or probably Seattle. But then it's another 2 hours to Moxie. And why was he in Moxie? As you can see on the map, Moxie is in the downtown middle of nowhere, Washington. Maybe that cab driver was right. On the Monday morning, he had driven David Glenn Lewis to Dallas Airport and he had flown there. The cab driver said he was weird, he was nervous, he had a big wad of cash on him. He had flown from Dallas and then died in Washington. Why was he wearing military-style clothing? Why was he wearing military-style boots? And why was he so far from anything or anyone or even any travel points? Why was he disoriented in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere? And hit and run. That car's never been found. Was he killed? Was he truly kidnapped by somebody who had dressed him in strange clothing? His wife would say he never wore that clothing like that before in his life. Listen here, folks, I haven't done Conspiracy Captain in a while, but this sounds like a weird government conspiracy with military and maybe David, as an attorney, had been investigating something a little too suspicious or liking of some nefarious bad boys, people doing something no good. Like all the cases in this video, there seems like there's more to this old one than meets the eye. It's very unsettling. But unsettling in the most possible way. So please, as always, let me know your thoughts on all of these cases in the comments down below. Because, well, I'm not going to be sleeping good tonight. Please don't go missing.
Man, that last one, man, dude, I thought the one before that was one of those ones where you just feel like you will never know what the freak happened. I really don't know what the freak happened in that case. Did somebody explain to me how did this man end up over 1,000, 1,600, 1,500, 1,600, 1,000, no, 1,500 miles away, away from where his house was. I can't even freaking think straight right now, y'all. Like, this stuff don't make no much that damn sense. Don't make no damn sense, man. How did he end up 1,500 to 1,600 miles away? I know Mike said something like that. Let me calm down and just try to assess this stupid ass situation in that time frame. How did he end up there in that time frame? And he actually is evidence that he pressed record on the VCR. Y'all remember the VCRs if you old as me. You know how you gotta press the record button on a lot of them, man, to record what you're trying to record. How did he do that, and why would he do all? I'm not finna go down this rabbit hole with y'all. I'm not even finna go down it with y'all, man. Y'all just heard Mike, man. I just gotta speak on that one probably being the most, like, I have no idea at all. Whatever type of theory you come up with, I ain't gonna say I agree with it, but at the same time, I won't say I disagree with it. Seriously, man, that makes no freaking sense how that man ended up in that little small ass rural town or whatever from where he was within that time frame. Let's finish the video up, y'all. Mike got like he said, you gonna sleep well at night. Tonight, this one of them ones where I'm gonna be thinking about what the freak happened to this one. What the dude in the chimney, what happened right here? Like, dude, what the freak? Mike out, man. Mike freaking out. It is always the light beam team when we get to go back to Mike. And Jesus Christ, all these stories, man, for the most part, but not even for the most part, it was strange as elf. Long story short, story long, all these was strange, y'all. We're gonna run back through them real quick, man. We're gonna run back through them real quick. We're gonna start from the very first one that we heard, which was what, being seen? What was the first one? Robert being found in the air conditioner. Dude, somebody see that's what I'm saying, man. All these stories are so freaking crazy. And what I really wanted to say is all these stories, I don't really have a definitive answer for none of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how Robert ended up in there. I don't know if it was Jeremy who did it or what, but I don't believe he went up in that air conditioner and went through all that shit just to get his arms. I'm not gonna even say all them details because YouTube be listening. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't believe that man went through all that just to get stuck up in there, man. What was the one after that, y'all? So many freaking crazy stories on this one. Let me see real quick. Oh, I can't remember. I think his name was Joshua the Chimney. Like, what the freak, man? That's another one. I don't know if Joshua went down there on his own or if somebody put him down there. It's another dude who came up later on in the story. Andy, I think it was his name. He could be possible for Joshua murder or death or whatever. It's just like, man, I don't freaking know what these stories, y'all. The one dude that we do know about from Mike is the one with the guy who worked at the supermarket and they ended up for some reason running out the house with no clothes on and ended up at the supermarket where he worked and died behind a freezer, and it took over 10 years before they discovered that he was there. Man, Mike, these are just freaking wild, being seen. These are wild. And the last one, like I just spoke on, that is the one where I just can't. I don't know. I just don't know why that man did it. I can't even say. Well, can we even say that he was the one who decided to end up in that spot in that rural area, thousands of ways away from his house. You know what I'm saying? Was that even on him or was he kidnapped? But earlier I was saying that I do feel like he left on his own. I don't freaking know, my brothers and sisters. I know I done said that a million times, and I'm gonna say it one more time before I let y'all go. As far as all these stories for the most part go, I don't freaking know. But I digress. I'm gonna go and let y'all go now, but the one thing I will say I know about is that this was another great video from Mike, and I will say that I appreciate y'all coming on back once again to fuck with me. And before y'all leave, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And come on back tomorrow, and this is one of the rare times, y'all, I don't know who we going to tomorrow. But like I like to say, best believe we gonna go. And until then, my friends, also, remember this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.